If you've been paying attention to politics at all, you've heard a lot of conversation around income inequality. And I think it's an important topic for us to talk about, as you've probably noticed and had some experience in your life of the difference in what people make as far as their income goes. And the news is very quick to point this out. They always try to separate the rich and the poor, and oftentimes it's done in a very negative light. And it could probably have you wondering, why does God even allow income inequality? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And if you don't know who I am, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time, my name is Mckensy Long. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've been in the financial industry for almost a decade. I've helped educate thousands of people when it comes to their finances and money. I've recruited hundreds of agents and helped them in the process of getting good at this industry. And by doing that, you get to see a lot about the insides of people and how they handle their money. And if you're looking to make your life better, especially in the area of finances, I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and also the bell as well. So we've got an entire new series coming out to help you do better with your finances. And you are not going to want to miss it. Now today we're talking about, why does God allow income inequality? And as I'm sure that you've noticed, there is a huge disparity between people with money, and there's lots of people without money. And I think part of this questioning comes from, would we want it another way? Should it be another way? Because sometimes, especially when we really highlight the difference between the two, it can seem very unfair. And especially if you're struggling to get by, it can seem very difficult to understand why they should have so much and why other people should have so little. And there are really two parables that I think we need to talk about today. And the first one is going to be the parable of the talents. And you're going to find this in Matthew 14 through 30. Now, I'm going to do a lot of paraphrasing here, so make sure you go read it for yourself so that you can make your own conclusion. But very briefly, to keep it short, basically what happens is there's a master and he gives three of his guys three different amounts of money. It's called a talent. It's about 1 year's salary. And so he gives one gentleman 5 talents, he gives the next 2, and finally he gives the last 1. Now, when they all come back, this is years later, he meets with them again, and the first one gives 10 talents. He had basically doubled what he had been given. The second had brought in 4 talents, which was again double what he was given. And the last one brought in 1 talent. He was so afraid of losing what he had that he decided to bury the money in the ground and just bring it back to his master later. So when he was looking at this, when the master was looking at this, he assessed the first 2 and basically said that they were good and faithful stewards, and that because they had done a great job, because they were good stewards, they were going to be given more. But the last one he rebuked. He said he was wicked, lazy, and worthless. So what does that mean to us? To me, in there's a sign, and it even says this if you get in and read the scripture, that each person is given different amounts. Each person has different talents, different abilities, different skills. They're born in different parts of the world. So we're not going to be measured by what it is that we actually give back. The fruit that we're able to bear is not dependent on, it's not equal amongst everybody. Everybody's given a different amount of skills and placement in the planet, and all of that makes a big difference on what they're able to provide or the fruit that they're able to bear. And it shows that there's some responsibility on us to be able to take what we're given and do something with it. That as we increase our ability, that as we get better at handling things, that we will be given more of it. However, if we don't do well with it, then it'll also be taken away. And I think that if you've ever trained people or if you've had kids of your own, you can understand this. When you give them something, you allow them to use something of yours, and it comes back as good or better than when you let them borrow it, you're more willing to let them borrow more stuff. But somebody else who borrows something or uses something of yours and it comes back worse than it was that you gave it, you're not going to lend them stuff, right? So it has to do with how we treat the things that we've been given and what we do with those things. And since everybody is given different amounts and different abilities, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're all supposed to have the same amount, but that we all provide things in different ways. And the second parable that we need to look at is of the fig tree. And this is from Luke 13, 6 through 9. And this one's way shorter, but again, I'm going to paraphrase, so read it for yourself. But basically, there's a vineyard owner, and he's coming by, and he's obviously assessing his property, and he looks at one of the fig trees, and the fig tree is simply not producing fruit. And he talks to the groundkeeper, and the groundkeeper has been taking care of it. It's actually, if you understand how a vineyard works, it's actually in one of the best places in the vineyard. This is the best soil. It's been given everything that it needs to be able to produce fruit, but for whatever reason, it's not producing fruit. And eventually this vineyard owner gets tired of having this tree that's producing no fruit, and he cuts it down. And I think this is a great example for our lives as well. And it's oftentimes very difficult to understand, but different trees, different plants, different fruit trees give off different types of fruit, and obviously different amounts, but they're all required to be able to bear fruit. And to me, that's a reflection of we are required to provide something for what we've been given, that we're supposed to be giving back, that we're supposed to be doing this thing. Our life is supposed to have some meaning. And we're supposed to be doing things for other people. We're supposed to be bearing fruit. So whatever it is that our gifts and our talents are, whatever it is that we've been given, we should be exploring those areas and doing well in those. And so that means if you're in an area that produces more income, you're going to produce more income than an area that might provide more value in other areas. Maybe it's art, maybe it's music, maybe it's other things that it's going to provide, but we're all bearing fruit, just that we are different types of tree and different sizes of trees, and there's nothing wrong with that. The question is, are you bearing fruit in your life? And so as I look at these parables, and there are many others as well, it doesn't look like God's purpose for us here is to have equality of income. Now, there are lots of other equalities that God and the Bible does talk about, as far as being a person and being sovereign, and the ways that we're supposed to treat each other, and how we're all brothers and sisters, as a requirement on how we handle people and how we're equal, but not necessarily our income equality. And the reason for that is we're given choice, we're given options, we're given abilities. So we can choose to bear more fruit, or we can choose to bear less fruit. And I think that really goes back to the parable of the talents, in that these guys had the choice of what they were going to do. They had decisions that they could make. And one of them decided to do nothing with what he had been given, and the other decided to do something with it. So since we have free will, it means that everybody is free to do what it is that they want to do, whether they choose to bear fruit or not bear fruit. And I would love to hear what you have to say about it in the comments, what your thoughts are, if there are other parables that you think relate to this, or other parts of the Bible that you think relate to this as well. I would love to hear about it down in the comments below. And don't forget, if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe and the bell. That way you can stay in touch with us. We've got an entire new series coming out, and it's going to be fantastic for you to understand and to change some of your beliefs around money. And I think it will help you be more fruitful in your life. So I hope this was helpful for you. And as always, I hope you have a great day.